This video is going to cover everything you need to know about placement to push to diamond and merge tactics. Just these basic tips that I'm going to give you were all I needed to know to push well into the top 10k. This is going to be a pretty laid back video. I'm just going to split it into a couple of parts. First, I'm going to talk about early game placement for the first round or two. Then I'm going to start talking about more general placement before I move on to matchup specific stuff. So let's get into it. In the first round of the game, you're going to have two troops on the board to work with, and we can categorize these troops as frontline troops like the Goblin, Knight, and P.E.K.K.A, and backline troops like the Archer, Dart Goblin, Spear Goblin, things like that. So, we're going to tackle cases of mixing those two archetypes individually. First case we're going to look at is the case of two backline troops. Say we started with an Archer and then bought ourselves a Dart Goblin. What we're going to want to do is put them in opposite corners on the back line. The reason for this is, say my opponent has like a frontline troop. This frontline troop is going to have to walk all the way to the Archer before it can attack, but that whole time it's walking, it's in range of attack by both of my backline troops. The goal of this placement is to maximize that travel time. So, we're going to be able to attack during this whole travel time, and then after he kills the Archer, he has to walk all the way to the Dart Goblin, which is again more travel time that we can utilize. Now, even if our opponent doesn't have any frontline troops and instead is running two backline troops, the same logic is going to apply, because first of all, our opponent could just sell and buy a frontline troop at any time. That's not a risk we want to take. And secondly, if our opponent sticks with just backline troops, we still don't want to afford them the advantage of letting their troops lock onto ours any earlier. So we want to parallel them like this in a sort of mirror match just to give ourselves the best chance. The next case to tackle is going to be one frontline troop and one backline troop. So say we started out with a Barbarian and an Archer. That's a pretty nice combo. So we want to place them like they are now, with the Archer in the corner again, because that makes her the hardest to target, and the Barbarian in the back, because if they, for instance, start with two frontline troops this time, then we're going to want to maximize the time that they're walking still, because the Archer can attack during that time and none of these three troops can. Even though we're delaying our Barbarian as well, these troops are still going to have to walk before they can get any value. The Archer gets immediate value. So it's still best for us to put them in the back like this so that they keep attacking. And the same logic applies if they only had 1 or 0 frontline troops, because we just don't want to take that risk. Finally, we have the case where we end up with two frontline troops. So say we started with a Barbarian and something like a Goblin machine. Now, we don't want to put them in the back. In case our opponent has two Rangers, we're just giving them free value, whether they put them in the front or the back. So we're going to want to put them both in the front, but in these cases, you want to decide whether or not to put them both in the front line like this or to stagger one behind the other. If I had what my opponent was running, like a P.E.K.K.A, I would probably want to put the P.E.K.K.A in front of the Barbarian so it tanked, because both of these troops would target the P.E.K.K.A. Like, say they had something else like an Archer even. This Archer would target the P.E.K.K.A first, give my Barbarian more time to survive. So, with this case, we would do something like this. And it would apply the same way if we had something like a Barbarian and a Goblin. The Goblin would get tanked for by our Barbarian. So, these are the things you want to look out for. And the same thing applies to something we're going to get to later, which is ability troops. The Goblin machine, we might have the Barbarian tank for him, even though he has plenty of health, because this ability is going to be valuable in attacking the Archer. Now, once we move on to the second round, the same logic is going to largely apply. If we have only backline troops, we're going to want to put them in the back line so that they maximize travel time of our opponent's frontline troops all the way to them. Now, if we have frontline troops, we're still going to want to put them probably in the front sometimes if they're stronger, but if they're weaker, like this Goblin, we can stagger them in the back in a pyramid like this so that, again, we maximize the travel time, because in this case, we'd be getting more value out of our Ranger troops. But if we had something like P.E.K.K.A in the front, then we would probably just put the P.E.K.K.A in the front and then go something like this, or put it over here so that it's farther away from the Barbarians, that it has more travel time, farther from the Archer as well. Now we're going to get back to what I mentioned earlier about tanking for ability troops. That's going to be the key for most placements in the game, and we're going to use the most popular comp as an example, Clan Avengers. So we're just going to build out a basic Clan Avengers setup with the Valkyrie as well, put the Valkyrie here in the middle, just for convenience sake, and then we're going to grab, again, the Bandit and something like the Mega Knight, which is pretty commonly paired. Now, the reason I staggered them in the back like this is, first of all, these are frontline troops, so I could just put them in the front. Obviously, the backline troops are going to go in the back. But the thing is, say my opponent has something like a, let's go P.E.K.K.A here in the corner. That P.E.K.K.A is immediately 1v1 against the Bandit. And if the Bandit dies early, she won't get her ability off. If my opponent was running something like Rangers with a Dart Goblin in the back and a Princess, then we need our Bandit to get as much value as possible. going through this back line, taking them all out. So having this 1v1 against the P.E.K.K.A knocks off most of her health would be a terrible matchup for us. So if we stagger her in the back like this, and the P.E.K.K.A was here, the P.E.K.K.A, well, based on targeting, if we bought the Barbarian first, it would just target the Barbarian. It would walk over here and then target the Barbarian, which would be great for us. If we bought the Bandit first, unfortunately, it would wait for the Bandit to walk up and then attack the Bandit. But that's less likely in a Clan Avenger setup. And the same thing's going to apply over here to our Mega Knight, though it's more nuanced with a Mega Knight. So if the Mega Knight is facing against something that's very strong, like, say, a Skeleton King, for instance. Now, we don't want this Mega Knight to die immediately because, again, we want to get value from his ability. So I could stagger him back. But say the Mega Knight was like extremely strong for my team, like 2 stars or even 3, we could just put him up in front to tank for other troops like our Valkyrie or like our backline troops, for instance. We could do something like this if we wanted and hope that he doesn't like slide over, because that gives us travel time on the Bandit again, which can be targeted by the Archer. But anyways, regardless of that, the point is we want to protect our ability troops if possible. Like, say we had a Valkyrie, we want to use her to protect troops like the Mega Knight, who are more useful for their ability than just their straight up tanking prowess. Now, to an extent, this logic can also apply to troops like the Barbarian. Like, say we had a 3-star Valkyrie, we would probably just want the Valkyrie to tank for us as long as possible. And that means these troops would attack the Valkyrie, and these troops would walk up and attack the Skeleton King and Barbarian unimpeded, which is something that would be great for us because we need to take out these heavy frontline troops in order to get to those backline troops, the Rangers. Now, this Clan Avengers setup is going to be convenient for me explaining my next point, which is going to be something that the Archer Queen can be used for in placements like this. If I was in a matchup like this with Rangers in the back, I know that those are just going to be building up damage as these stronger frontline troops, say if you had like a 2-star Mega Knight and a 2-star P.E.K.K.A here, those would be tanking, and that would be bad for us. So I might go ahead and put my Archer Queen up in the front because I know she's not going to be targeted immediately, and that way she can be sniping this princess before the princess can do significant damage. The princess is going to be targeting over here because she targets the farthest troop. So I can do something like that and make more use out of my Archer Queen. Now, if my Archer Queen was vastly overleveled compared to the rest of my team, I could even do something similar in the center. I could put the Archer Queen in the center if it was, say, 3 stars before the most of the rest of my team, and she would pop an early ability, but she would also be able to target all 6 of these opposing troops at once. So she would pop her ability, the troops would retarget, and then she would be left attacking all of these troops. And the same thing can apply with the Archer Queen, even if the troops are like assassins behind her. So if an assassin jumped back here, if they had an assassin set, the queen can attack all of these troops and the royal ghost at once. So if you have a super strong queen, like 3-star or 4-star, you want to put her in the center sometimes in early rounds. Speaking of assassins, we're going to cover a quick case of what to do if you're facing assassins and you see them coming up. So if my opponent had something like this, where he has the set of assassins, I know that those troops are going to be jumping to whatever openings I leave them in the back row. So I can do something like this. I can set up in a way so that I know where his assassins are going to land. And a setup like this would do well. The reason for this is because it basically corrals his assassins so I know where they're going to land. This Royal Ghost is going to land in this pocket here. And if I bought the Valkyrie first, I know that he's going to target the Valkyrie or whoever I put in that front slot. This Golden Knight is going to land here and immediately be faced by a tanky Mega Knight. And this Goblin is going to land here and be pretty much useless as it has to walk around the conflict down here. And this gives my troops time to get their value in. My Rangers will not immediately be taken out, or my backline troops, by these assassins. Now I've reset the board a bit to show a good setup for throwers. We have the Bomber back here because the splash damage is going to be really useful once the enemy troops get clumped up. We have the Spear Goblin back here, and then the Executioner is right here. And to show why, I'm going to make a little example of these Rangers set up in the back. Sorry, this is supposed to be a Dart Goblin. Now, if this Executioner was attacking this dummy or whatever troop was in that spot, which is a very common spot to have a troop, obviously it's in the front line, it would throw straight through and target the Archer. So that would be a great lineup for us. And the same would apply in this spot. It would go straight through, hit the Dark Goblin. And if you'll notice, the same would apply in this spot. It would go straight through and hit the Princess. So a lineup like this with the Executioner is very nice because with troops in these 3 common spots, it would go straight through and attack the Rangers. And those spots are especially likely, like spots like this are more likely and this are more likely because they want to space out because of the bomber. Like they don't want to put something here and here and here because then the bomber would target all 3. So that demonstrates why it's useful to have an Executioner, a row up in this spot. Now flip things around a bit and give us the Rangers for a change in a very common matchup, us against Clan Avengers, where they have this threatening card, the Bandit. We don't want the Bandit to get to our back line and just dash back and forth. We want her to be occupied with this front line, but it's not looking like that's going to be the case for very long because she has this really direct path to dash. So in a case like this, what you can do is place 2 of your Rangers over here, usually these 2, and 1 of them over here. And the benefit of that is the Bandit is going to dash down here, and then she'll dash back to your frontline troops, letting them tank a little bit for these Rangers. And then she's going to dash over here, and she can dash back. So she can't dash directly between. She has to dash back and forth, back and forth. Now, I've reset one last time to explain a mechanic that can be pretty confusing, I think, and that's how the Juggernaut shield works. So I have 4 Juggernauts, and you know that any troops that are behind them are going to get a shield, but the key thing to know is that it only applies to troops that are directly behind them, placed in the tile behind a Juggernaut. So if the archer was back here, that wouldn't work. Now, that generally doesn't matter for Rangers too much, because that shield is, again, temporary. So the way it works is the shield applies for the beginning of the round, and then eventually it runs out. So it wouldn't really make much sense to put your Rangers in a spot like this when they could just stay back here, and then by the time they would be attacked, their shield would run out. But it applies well for troops like the Prince. I could put a Prince behind this Juggernaut, and then it would attack and have its shield while it was attacking. So that's a pretty good troop to use it with, and for that reason, I like building comps with Juggernauts and Prince. And say I had a classic comp like this. This is a popular Juggernaut comp. One thing that I can do to get more value out of my Juggernauts is I can stagger them behind each other. Because say if I put this Skeleton King behind the Knight, it would get its own shield for being a Juggernaut, but it also gets a shield for being behind a Knight. So it effectively has a doubled shield. And the same thing would apply to this Goblin Machine here. This one would only have 1 because it's behind a Juggernaut. It doesn't double like that. So this has a double shield, this has a double shield, these both have singles, and the Prince has a single shield even after he dashes. Now, the key thing to note is that because you have to be directly behind, it doesn't double like this. P.E.K.K.A wouldn't get a triple shield because it's only behind 1 Juggernaut. So because of that, I find this to be a pretty successful setup for Juggernauts, and I think that's the last thing I'm going to cover in this video. So thank you for watching. Check out my shorts if you want to learn other good comps in this game. And if you want to see some good gameplay of Rangers, then I have a video out on my channel right now. The season reset's coming on super fast, so I hope you guys can make it to Diamond. I'm thinking about making more videos when the new season comes out to cover all the huge changes, so let me know if these longer, messier videos are helpful, or if you prefer the shorter stuff, send this video to one person who plays Merge Tactics.